Thanksgiving, her son raised a toast and embarrassed her with one sentence. She's here for the leftovers. He smirked, glass raised in front of the in-laws. Carla Eden didn't flinch. By morning, his name was off the deed, the brand, and the business he'd built on her recipes. She'd served him legacy for decades. Now, she was serving him eviction. And when he came back for the kitchen, it was already locked behind her signature. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The knife glinted under the chandelier as Jason sliced through the bird, his voice smooth as lacquered wood. Carla sat 2 seats away, straight back, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She could smell the sage and the stuffing, her stuffing, though Laura claimed it this year with a Pinterest twist and called it rustic fusion. The dining room hummed with soft jazz and shallow compliments. The Bristows liked their holidays like they liked their tableware, polished white and free of sharp edges. Carla had arrived 30 minutes early, parking behind a landscaper's van like she didn't belong. She brought 2 things, her famous pecan pie and a jar of cranberry glaze she had slow reduced the night before. No one met her at the door. Laura's assistant had waved her in like a DoorDash driver. Jason was the first to greet her, arms wide, teeth tight. Mom, you made it. You didn't have to bring anything. Laura's got it all covered, but he took the pie anyway. Didn't even glance at the glaze. I figured, Carla replied, hanging her coat by the hall closet. But tradition is stubborn. The Bristows gathered in the great room, sipping white wine that smelled like lemons and money. Gerald talked stocks. Ruth leaned in conspiratorially to Laura, commenting on how Carla's cardigan looked cozy, the kind of word that's 3 in from quaint. Delia sat in the corner, sipping black coffee, watching it all with the detached smirk of someone who'd seen this act before. Carla took the empty seat beside her. You see the centerpiece, Delia murmured, nodding toward the table. They turned your old bread basket into a floral grave. I saw, Carla said, her voice dry. Dinner was announced at precisely 5 o'clock. The table was long and candlelit. The turkey was already resting under a rosemary crown. The plates were monogrammed. Carla's glaze wasn't on the table. She didn't ask. Jason stood to carve the bird, sleeves rolled up, wine glass in hand. Before we dig in, he began, voice dipped in charm. I just want to thank my incredible in-laws for making this year so special. Ruth, Gerald, you've taken holiday hosting to another level. Laura, sweetheart, you've outdone yourself. He looked toward Carla. Her name was a pause. And Mom, he added, raising his glass, she's here for the leftovers. It's kind of our tradition. The laughter came quick, not cruel, just casual. The worst kind, like she was a footnote in a family joke, like she was lucky to have a seat. Laura smiled, sipping her Pinot. Carla said nothing. She reached for the water pitcher, her hand steady. The room moved on without her. They passed dishes, swapped real estate gossip, and mentioned local renovations like sports scores. Carla picked at the mashed potatoes, her tongue thick with silence. Jason passed her a slice of turkey. White meat, dry, an insult on a plate. You're not eating much, Carla, Ruth said sweetly. Didn't get to you in time. Carla smiled, the way you smile when someone steps on your foot and says, sorry, too late, I've had my fill. She glanced across the table. Sage, her 13-year-old granddaughter, wasn't laughing. She just watched Carla, her fork frozen midair. When the first round of pie was served, store-bought pumpkin-plated with edible gold leaf, Carla stood. Excuse me, she said, folding her napkin. I've got an early morning. You're not staying for dessert? Laura asked, all lips and teeth. I brought mine, Carla replied. No need to sample yours. Jason stood as if to escort her out, but she was already moving past the butler's pantry they had installed where her sunroom once sat, past the coat rack that had no hook for her jacket. Delia quietly rose to follow. They stepped outside into the Kentucky dusk, air sharp with pine and burnt sugar. Carla didn't speak until they reached her car. Delia broke the silence first. You handled that better than I would have. Carla opened her door, slid the pie onto the passenger seat, untouched. Her voice was low, firm, like a rope tightening around a stake. He forgot who built the damn kitchen. The deadbolt clicked behind her with a finality that felt earned. Carla dropped her keys into the ceramic bowl by the door, one she'd made in a pottery class the year after William died, and stood in silence. The guest cottage smelled like cinnamon and wood smoke, her own scent. Safe home. Outside, the frost was beginning to coat the edge of the window panes. Inside, the old radiator ticked and hissed like an aging dog stretching its bones. She moved deliberately, unwrapping her scarf and kicking off her shoes. The walk from Jason's estate back here, barely a mile, had felt longer than usual. Or maybe she was just finally tired of walking circles around her own damn legacy. Carla poured herself a half glass of bourbon. Neat. She didn't sip it right away. She needed clarity, not comfort. She walked to the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled down the worn lockbox from the top shelf. Black, fireproof, and unassuming, the kind you hide, not because of what it looks like, but because of what it holds. She sat at the edge of her bed, set the bourbon down, and clicked open the latch. Inside, a stack of documents neatly labeled in her handwriting: tax returns, health proxy forms, William's death certificate, and beneath it all, sealed in plastic and thick with legal weight, the deed to Eden Farm, the land, the house, the kitchen still in her name. The ink hadn't faded one bit. Jason had never asked for it outright. That was his trick. He always made it seem like she was offering. Years ago, when his catering business needed a face, Carla had let him use the house for photo shoots. Later, when he got married, he asked if they could transition things formally so his new wife's family could help with investments. Carla allowed him access, but never the title. She'd seen enough widows in town lose everything because they confused possession with protection. She had called it estate planning. Jason had called it paranoia. The Bristows never asked questions. They were too eager to believe that the house, the farm, the brand, were now in the hands of someone who fit their image. Jason let them. It made him look important. It made Carla disappear in the narrative, but not on paper. She ran her thumb across the seal on the deed, notarized, witnessed, filed. Her cell buzzed against the nightstand. She reached for it without looking. "This is Amanda. I saw your name on caller ID. You all right?" Her lawyer, old friend, same woman who once hid Carla in her guest room the night she'd fled from William's wake just to breathe. "I need to go over something," Carla said, voice steady. "The Eden Farm property. You still have the documents." Amanda paused. Then, "Carla, you know I do. Everything we filed, it's still airtight." Carla closed the lockbox with a soft snap. "I'm ready to enforce it." "You sure?" "They served me dry turkey and called it tradition," she said flatly. "I've had enough." Amanda gave a dry laugh. "Familiar and warm. You want it back." Carla stood holding the deed in one hand like a torch. "I never lost it. The front door wasn't locked." It rarely was. That was the Bristow confidence. When you believe everything belongs to you, why bother with bolts? Carla stepped into the house like a woman crossing back over a line that had been redrawn without her permission. She moved slowly, eyes sharpened by memory, breath shallow in her chest. The air inside was lemoned and filtered, a sterile scent that didn't belong. Not here. Not where William's hands once held dough to a butcher block while Hank Williams crooned on a transistor in the corner. The floors had changed. Dark walnut now. She paused, slipping off her shoes like habit, letting her feet press against what used to be pine they'd sanded together, barefoot and sunburnt the summer after Jason was born. She moved down the hallway toward the kitchen. The walls were white. She remembered when they were buttercream yellow because William said it reminded him of Sunday eggs. Now they were lined with framed black and white photos of events she didn't attend, bride and groom poses, wine tastings, branding shots with Jason holding copper pans like props. Her pantry door was gone. The space had been opened into a minimalist bar, smoked glass shelves, artisanal liquor, LED lights. She paused and lifted her phone, taking a photo, not for keepsake, for court. She didn't linger. That was the trick of grief. If you look too long, it turns memory into mourning. Thought in the kitchen, she stood still. The counters gleamed, soulless, quartz, or maybe marble. Laura's doing, no doubt. The backsplash was mosaic now, cold and sleek. Her old tile, hand-painted and chipped from decades of meals and foot traffic, had been stripped like skin. But one thing remained. The window over the sink still framed the garden, only now the tomatoes and okra had been ripped out, replaced by pink peonies and ornamental kale, like a magazine shoot pretending to be soil. Carla felt her jaw tighten, her fingers curled. She walked to the corner of the kitchen, opened the bottom cabinet empty, but she reached behind the lip of the shelf blindly until her fingers touched something smooth. She pulled out the old measuring spoon she'd wedged there 21 years ago for good luck. The brass had dulled, but the engraved 1/2 teaspoon of love still winked in the light. They didn't even know it was here. She set it in her pocket and took another photo. Her eyes caught the island next. It was where Jason had sat the night Tessa dumped him in college. Face blotchy, hunched over a pot of Carla's chicken stew. He cried without shame, said no one else in the world could make pain taste good. Now that same island was all sharp lines and hard lighting, curated like a showroom, a prep station for someone else's brand. Not a home, not anymore. She sat for a moment on the bench by the mudroom and opened her satchel. Inside the deed, she unfolded it gently, laying it against the marble counter like a challenge. She circled 2 clauses in red ink, proof of full ownership and authority over structural changes. She didn't look back. She didn't touch the spice drawer she'd labeled in cursive, or the small gouge in the floor, where William had dropped the mixer. Back outside, she found Delia waiting in her old Buick, engine humming, heat on full blast. Carla slid in and shut the door without a word. Delia didn't turn. You go in alone, or you want backup next time. I got what I needed, Carla replied, eyes on the house in the rearview mirror. They buried me in that kitchen. Dee didn't even have the decency to use my name. Delia shifted in her seat, voice soft but unblinking. If you do this, they won't forgive you. Carla's lips barely moved, but the heat in her voice could melt steel. Good. The letter went out at 9:02 a.m. certified, sealed, and served. By 9:27, the group chat between Jason, Laura, and her parents lit up like a power grid in a lightning storm. Carla didn't wait for the fallout. She brewed her coffee slow, black and bitter, exactly how William used to take it. The sun hadn't fully crested over the hills behind the barn, and a hawk hung in the morning sky like a warning. She sipped, watching frost dissolve across her garden beds. There was a peace in it, the kind you only earn after deciding you're done being quiet. At 10:12, Amanda texted, "Notice served, expect noise." The noise arrived 34 minutes later. Jason's name flashed on her phone screen, then vanished. He called again, then again. She let it ring. By 11 o'clock, Laura's number appeared with a tenacity that felt just like her smile. Carla muted it. At 12:14, Amanda forwarded an email from the Bristow legal team requesting a cooperative dialogue regarding asset reclassification. Carla laughed, loud and sharp. She replied with a single sentence, "No meeting necessary. Legal title is not a conversation." Meanwhile, across town, in the pristine open-concept living room Jason claimed as his castle, glass shattered. "What do you mean she never transferred it?" Ruth hissed, pacing the marble tile in heels that hadn't touched real dirt in years. Her lipstick matched her fury, stiff, bright, bleeding into the corners. Jason ran a hand through his hair. "She signed something years ago. An access agreement. It covered access, not ownership," Gerald barked, slapping the side of his laptop. "You told us we owned the house, Jason. We've invested 6 figures into renovations, marketing." Laura's curated an entire client base under the Bristow Eden name. Jason looked to Laura, desperate for backup. She crossed her arms, unmoved. "Did you lie?" she asked quietly, tone clipped. "To me or to them?" "I didn't lie," he snapped. I just assumed she'd do the right thing eventually. You mean hand it over and vanish? Laura's voice cracked like a whip. Jesus, Jason. You built our entire image on a house you don't even own. Back at the cottage, Carla dug through an old manila folder and found the business license renewal form she hadn't touched in 3 years. Eden Farm, LLC. She hadn't dissolved it, just let it sleep. She filled it out line by line, each keystroke deliberate, each field a reclamation, ownership, use, culinary licensing, location of principal kitchen. By 3:40 p.m., Eden Farm LLC was hers again, legally, publicly, permanently. Amanda sent confirmation and included a smiley face. Carla pretended not to see. Her next move came at 5:12. She stood in the cottage's small kitchen, lit only by the warm amber hue of a table lamp and the fading sun outside. She opened her old phone gallery, scrolled to the image she'd taken just days ago. The kitchen island, pale under fake light, stripped of soul, but still hers. She uploaded it with no filter, no explanation, no drama. Caption, coming home. She hit post and waited. It took less than 10 minutes. The comments started slow. Wait, are you back at Eden? That kitchen still remembers the real recipes. Oh hell yes. Carla's not playing anymore. Carla set the phone down, face buzzing with the smallest, strangest flicker of satisfaction. Not revenge yet, but the echo of balance shifting back into her palm. Outside, a car door slammed. Delia walked in 5 seconds later, her coat dusted, with leaves, eyes sharp. They're flipping out, she said without hello. Laura's lawyer called my husband. Said you're destabilizing a brand identity. I told him the only thing unstable is their grip on reality. Carla didn't even blink. Let them come, Delia smirked. What's next? Carla walked to the table, picked up a leather-bound notebook with menus from 1987 to 1999 etched into the corner. I'm reclaiming the rest of it. The recorder clicked on, but Carla didn't flinch. The air in the coffee shop was thick with cinnamon, roasted beans, and tension. Steam curled from her mug like breath in winter. Across from her sat Lena Morris, freelance journalist, local food columnist, and one of the few people who still remembered Carla as more than someone's mother. I'm not interested in gossip, Lena said, notebook open, pen poised, but I am interested. In truth, Carla stirred her coffee slowly, the silver spoon tapping against ceramic like a metronome. Then write this down. They didn't steal the house. They just forgot who built it. Lena's eyebrows arched, but she kept writing. They talked for over 2 hours. Carla spoke plainly, her voice equal parts grit and grace. She told Lena about the first time she saw Eden Farm, just 30 acres and a sagging fence, and how she and William refinished every floorboard themselves, how they built the kitchen with sweat and secondhand supplies, how they turned the back porch into a prep area, their garden into a pantry. She recounted weddings where the electricity cut out mid-toast, and she saved the night with candles and cornbread, corporate parties that ended in barefoot line dances, summer dinners where Jason fell asleep on the porch swing covered in biscuit crumbs. They liked the image of the place, Carla said, eyes steady. The idea of warmth without the weight of history. They wanted the kitchen, but not the calluses. Lena didn't interrupt, just let the silence hang like smoke between sentences. And the deed? Lena finally asked. Carla pulled the folder from her bag and opened it just enough for Lena to glimpse the seal. Still mine, she said. Always was. The article dropped 3 days later under a headline that didn't mince words. The woman behind the kitchen, they claimed. By nightfall, it had been shared hundreds of times on Lexington's foodie forums, wedding vendor networks, even the local PTA Facebook page. Former clients chimed in with stories. One remembered Carla saving a bride's reception after a torrential downpour. Another posted a photo of Carla's handwritten menu from a 2004 retirement party. Bourbon-glazed carrots and smoked pork shoulder. Every bite had soul. The town didn't care about Jason's branding. It remembered Carla's biscuits. Meanwhile, in the Bristow estate, things weren't simmering, they were boiling. Jason sat at the dining table, Papers scattered, laptop open to the article. His face was flushed, jaw tight. Laura stood behind him, arms folded. You told me the paperwork was handled, she said. It was. He scrolled furiously, then clicked open a scanned PDF. We filed a transfer intent form years ago. Laura snatched the laptop, reading silently. Then Jason, this is a draft. It was never notarized. Jason swallowed hard. I thought you could outmaneuver a woman who ran 3 ovens and a staff of 12 with nothing but a whistle and a prep list. She stared at him. You are not that smart. That night, Carla was trimming dead basil stems in her window box when her phone rang. She let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again. Finally, she answered. Jason's voice was small, too smooth. A man slipping into the tone he used when charm failed and desperation set in. Mom, he started. Can we just talk? The article's blown up. People are pulling out of bookings. This doesn't have to go public. We can fix it quietly. Carla looked out the window at the distant silhouette of Eden Farm, the porch lights glowing like a mirage. You forged my signature, she said. There was silence on the line. You used what I built, she continued, to make yourself look important. Now you want mercy because the spotlight's not yours anymore. I made a mistake. You made a business out of pretending I was gone. He exhaled shakily. Please, can we work something out? Carla walked to the stove where her cast iron skillet was warming. She dropped in a pat of butter. It hissed. The oven's still warm, Jason, she said, voice low but lit with fire. And I'm just getting started. The knock came just after dusk. Soft and deliberate. Carla paused with her hands deep in a bowl of sugared pecans, flour dusting her apron, the smell of butter and cinnamon clinging to the air like memory. She wiped her fingers, stepped quietly to the door, and peered through the side window. It was Sage, 13 years old, hoodie up, sneakers muddy, a backpack slung across her shoulder like a runaway who hadn't made up her mind yet. She stood with her weight shifted to one side, too poised for her age, too still to be innocent. Carla opened the door without a word. The cold air swept in behind the girl like a warning. I only have 20 minutes, Sage said, voice low. Then come in and use every second, Carla replied, stepping aside. In the kitchen. The warmth enveloped them. Carla's radio hummed low, Patsy Cline beneath the soft crackle. Sage dropped her bag by the door and moved to the counter without needing to be told. She reached for the pie crust Carla had already rolled, then started folding the edges by instinct. You remember the order? Carla asked, testing. Sage nodded. Filling first, pecans last. You said they float better that way. Carla smiled just faintly. Smart girl. They worked in tandem. Cracked eggs, poured syrup, measured brown sugar with worn wooden spoons. The silence between them was easy, not heavy. Sage moved with care. Hands, sure, eyes sharper than a girl her age ought to carry. Halfway through mixing, she paused. Dad says you'll get over it, she murmured. Carla didn't answer at first. She stirred slowly, watching the molasses thread from her spoon like a fuse. But he's wrong, right? Sage added, voice tight. Now he doesn't get it. Carla set the spoon down, wiped her hands, and turned fully to her granddaughter. No, she said. He doesn't. Sage blinked fast, the way girls do when they've almost slipped into tears but don't want to be asked. I don't get why it matters so much to them. I mean, the kitchen was always yours. Everyone knows that. Carla tilted her head. Do you? Sage nodded earnestly. You cooked there. You worked there. I used to sit on the counter and eat pie crust before it baked. Laura says it's all about image now, but it's weird. Feels fake. Carla looked at the girl and saw it. The fire she used to press down in herself at that age. Observant, quiet, torn between loyalty and truth. She stepped to the drawer and pulled out a yellowed recipe card folded once down the middle, stained at the corner with something like bourbon or butter. She handed it to Sage. What's this? Your future and my insurance. Sage opened the card, reading silently. Carla, Eden's bourbon pecan pie. Handwritten, signed at the bottom, a date in 1996. One day, Carla said, "You'll need to remember who started this fire when they tried to tell you it came from somewhere else." Sage hugged her, then hard arms around Carla's middle, head pressed against her chest like she wanted to disappear into her. Carla didn't cry, she just held on tighter than she meant to. Later that night, after Sage had slipped back out and vanished into the shadows like she'd never come, Carla sat at her desk. She pulled up Amanda's firm online, opened a new document. Trust beneficiary, Sage Eden, age 13, contingent access 18. Assets Eden Farm LLC, pending transfer upon legal maturity. She saved it, encrypted it, and sent it off without ceremony. She didn't need applause. She was baking legacy. Her phone buzzed just after midnight, a single text from Amanda. "Heads up, they're filing a restraining petition, emergency order, trying to block you from setting foot on the property." Carla stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she reached into the oven, pulled out the pie, and set it gently on the cooling rack. The scent filled the house, sweet and warm. The courtroom smelled of old paper, polished oak, and anticipation. Carla sat alone at her table, a thin folder in front of her, hands folded neatly like a woman preparing for Sunday service, not war. Her lipstick was the same muted rose she'd worn to William's funeral, understated, unapologetic. Across the aisle, Jason adjusted his navy suit jacket like he was preparing for a photo shoot. Laura sat beside him, not touching him, not smiling. She wore all black, eyes forward, as though she were already mourning the outcome. Ruth and Gerald Bristow had sent a lawyer in their place, an older man with slicked back hair and a permanent frown, like he'd spent his entire career trying to silence women with folders like Carla's. The clerk called the case. Carla stood, spine straight, calm as stone. "Your Honor," Jason's attorney began, voice silk thin and syrup slick. "This petition seeks to clarify access and occupancy rights in light of recent confusion caused by Mrs. Eden's unexpected legal actions. We believe this is a case of miscommunication and possible diminished cognitive capacity." Carla didn't blink. She watched Jason. He didn't look at her. "She's 70. The lawyer said gently, as if age were a disease. "Our concern is that her decisions are being made emotionally, not legally." Judge Dunham, a woman in her 50s with a square jaw and no patience for theater, tilted her head. "Does she appear emotionally impaired to you?" Jason's lawyer hesitated. "We believe there's a pattern of impulsive behavior, escalation, disruption." Carla opened her folder. Her hands didn't tremble. When her turn came, she didn't bother with a long statement, just facts. "This is the original deed to Eden Farm, signed and notarized in 1985. She slid the document forward. "Never sold, never transferred." She pulled out a second sheet. "This is the LLC reinstatement certificate filed legally last month naming me as sole proprietor." And a third, a rolled, time-yellowed copy of the kitchen blueprints, William's name and hers inked in the margin. "These are the original plans. Every inch of that house we built ourselves, including the kitchen. That's my handwriting." She let it land with a soft thud on the table. "And for the record," she added, looking directly at Jason now, "I am not confused." Jason leaned forward, hands clasped in front of him like he was praying. "I thought she gave it to me. All these years she let me use it. That means something." "You thought," the judge repeated flatly. "And did she ever sign a transfer?" "No. But then your thoughts aren't the law." Laura shifted slightly in her seat. Jason tried again. "She's turning it into a personal attack." "My investors are pulling out our business," Carla cut in, voice smooth as bourbon. "You mean my business. You ran it with my name, my history. You wore it like a costume." The courtroom was silent. Even the bailiff stopped fidgeting. Judge Dunham leaned forward. "Mrs. Eden, do you wish to block the respondent from accessing the property entirely?" "I want him out of my kitchen," she said. "He can keep his decor, but the heart of that house belongs to me." The gavel struck once. "Deed stands. Restraining petition denied. All rights revert to the title holder." Case dismissed. Outside, flashbulbs didn't go off. This wasn't a movie, but a local news intern did snap a photo of Carla walking down the courthouse steps, folder in hand, scarf trailing behind her like a battle flag. Jason tried to speak as she passed. "Mom, please." She didn't stop. "You can cook without me," she said over her shoulder. "Let's see how you clean without me." That night, as the sun bled out over the hills of Lexington, Carla sat in the cottage, peeling an orange over the sink, the scent sharp and clean. Her phone buzzed on the counter from Mike Contractor, "Ready to demo the butler's pantry when you are." She smiled. Time to gut the rot. The butler's pantry was the first to go. Carla stood in the archway with her arms crossed, watching as two men in dust-covered boots yanked down a floating glass shelf lined with curated bourbon bottles. One of them paused, hesitant. "You sure you want this whole section out?" he asked. Nodding at the wall Laura had tiled in imported Spanish marble, Carla gave him a steady look. "That wall covered up my spice rack. I want it gone down to the studs." The hammer swung. Tile cracked like eggshell. The sound was cleansing. The renovation was quiet, deliberate, nothing flashy. She started by removing the smart oven Laura had installed, the one that glowed blue and talked back. It had no place here. She replaced it with the 6-burner cast-iron beast she and William had bartered for back in '92. In exchange for 2 weddings and a funeral catering, the color on the walls was next. She painted over Laura's bone-white minimalism with a warm, cornstalk yellow, 2 coats, no primer. She wanted the new color to bleed straight through. On the 3rd day, she rehung the knife rack. The wood had dried out from years in storage, but the blades still gleamed. Honed and waiting, she ran a finger across the smallest one, paring steel, short and sharp, and remembered the first peach he ever sliced for her on a June afternoon when Jason was 6 and barefoot on the porch. "You could have bought a new one," Delia said behind her voice, amused. "I'm not building a brand," Carla replied. "I'm restoring a kitchen." Delia moved into the guest room the following week. She brought 2 suitcases, a box of crossword books, and her old apron with the faded blue flowers stitched across the chest. They didn't talk much while working. They didn't have to. Delia scraped old adhesive off the cabinet corners while Carla resurfaced the butcher block with lemon oil and a prayer. The air smelled of citrus and sawdust, like old promises coming up for air. When they took breaks, they drank iced coffee and watched Jason's car idle down the drive. He didn't get out, just stared, engine running as if waiting for the house to reject her. It never did. "He looks like someone watching his name fall off the marquee," Delia said one afternoon, wiping sweat from her brow with a dish rag. "Good," Carla said. "He never earned top billing." One evening, while searching for a paintbrush in the mudroom closet, Carla found the plastic crate covered in a burlap cloth. When she pulled it out and pried the lid open, she stopped breathing. Her catering journals, 5 of them, leather-bound, edges weathered. Inside, page after page of annotated menus, vendor notes, price breakdowns, customer letters. Each line was in her handwriting. Ink-smudged corners dog-eared, time-worn and holy. She turned to a page titled June 17th Garden Dinner for the Van Horn Anniversary. In the margins she'd scrolled, "Try the rosemary reduction again. Too much garlic last time. William says, add heat to the molasses glaze. Trust him." Carla sat on the step, journal in her lap, heart thudding like something coming alive again. These books weren't recipes. They were records, proof, a quiet history never published, but lived, bite by bite. She held the journal open in her lap, the paper warm from her palm. The memory of fire and rosemary filled her throat like a taste she'd forgotten. That night, long after Delia had gone to bed and the crew had cleared out, Carla stood in the half-restored kitchen, dust motes floating in the golden lamplight. She picked up the landline, still mounted on the wall where it always had been, and dialed slowly. A voice answered on the 3rd ring. "This is the Health Department, Licensing Division." Carla's voice was steady. "Yes, ma'am." I'm looking to reinstate a lapsed business license, Culinary Eden Farm. A pause on the other end, clicks of a keyboard. Date of lapse. 7 years ago, Carla said. Then, but it's coming back. 2 days later, Carla stood just off to the side, near the restored island, wearing her slate blue apron and a half smile. The kitchen glowed warm gold, freshly painted walls, open shelving lined with iron and copper, the same tile floors William once laid by hand. Only now the whole place breathed again. 12 seats, invitation only. That was her rule, and everyone at that table had earned theirs. A former bride who'd had her reception here in '98. A local chef who once staged under Carla for 2 summers, Lena Morris, pen poised beside her wine glass. 2 food bloggers from Lexington. 3 former clients who remembered Carla before Jason's brand had swallowed her whole. Delia, of course, at the head of the table, sipping sweet tea like it was fine scotch. And across from her, Carla's former produce vendor who said when he walked in, "This smells like the truth." The meal was 6 courses, no menu, no substitutions, everything grown within 15 miles and rooted in memory. Course 1, cornmeal, hush puppies with green tomato jam. Course 2, deviled eggs with pickled okra and smoked trout roe. Course 3, braised rabbit over black-eyed pea risotto. Course 4, fried catfish on white bread with brown butter, hot sauce. Course 5, apple stack cake with sorghum glaze. Course 6, pecan pie bites, bourbon whipped cream served warm. Of course, each dish came with a short story, not a speech, but a sentence or two, as Carla plated and passed. This one was from the last meal William ever cooked with me. I overcooked these once at a church banquet and had to serve fried chicken out of a kid's wagon. This was the first thing Jason ever liked. He was 6, said it tasted like forgiveness, laughter, soft eyes, some eyes wet. No one checked their phones. Halfway through the 4th course, Lena leaned toward Carla. "What do you call this?" Carla looked up from the cutting board where she was zesting lemon over the hot sauce. "This," she said, "this is Eden Table, private supper club by invitation, 1 seating a week." The announcement rolled through the room like thunder. Muffled, in velvet, Lena grinned. "That's going to catch fire." Carla smirked. "I'm counting on it." The next morning, the first review went live. Lexington's lost matriarch reclaims the flame. Eden Table is uncivil. Within a week, the supper club's name was on 3 local food blogs, 2 regional newsletters, and 1 travel podcast. Reservations for the next 6 Saturdays filled within 36 hours. The wait list stretched into February. The Bristow didn't stay quiet. Ruth posted a passive-aggressive prayer for family healing on Facebook, thinly veiled and deeply smug. Gerald shared a LinkedIn post about senior instability in entrepreneurial spaces. Then came a blog comment under a local review. "Are we sure this woman's stable enough to operate a full kitchen again?" Carla responded herself. "My ovens are certified. My knives are sharp. My hands are steady." Next question. That reply was screenshotted and shared over 1,000 times. She leaned in, updated her Instagram bio to sharp, rooted, seasoned, posted a video of herself stirring braised greens with the caption, "Unstable, baby, I'm simmering." It only made the waitlist grow. Late one afternoon, just as Carla was prepping hand-rolled dumplings for a menu test, her phone buzzed. She wiped flour off her fingers and checked it. From Ken Rothman, Jason's business partner, silent money behind the Eden Events venture. Text, "We're out. Your mom owns the brand now. You built on sand." Carla exhaled once, slow and deep, then turned to Delia, who was pouring sweet tea into mason jars. "Well," Carla said, "guess it's time to serve the next course." Carla launched her first official dinner series. 12 guests sat around the newly finished Pinewood Farm table, soft linen napkins folded like secrets in their laps, eyes fixed on the first course. Carla didn't explain the dish. She never did at the beginning. If you had a seat here, you were meant to taste first, understand later. The duck confit came during course 4, paired with a glaze made from blackberry molasses. and vinegar, the same reduction Carla once made for Jason's 10th birthday dinner when he'd cried over a failed school election and declared he'd never be good at anything. Back then, she told him, "Try again. You don't always win the first time, but you damn sure cook like you will." He hadn't remembered that meal, but Carla had. This was the first night of the Eden Table Season 1 dinner series. Every Saturday for the next 10 weeks, a different themed tasting. Harvests and losses, smoke and memory, bittersweet. Guests received menus only after the final course. Each dish came with a short handwritten note, just a line or two connecting the food to its roots. Course 1, her mother's pickled beets with goat cheese crostini note. "This was the first thing I made with my hands that didn't burn." Course 2, heirloom tomato tart with chive creme fraiche. Note, "Grown in the soil William tilled for our wedding day." Course 3, cornmeal crusted trout with wild greens. Note, "He brought it home in a cooler and said, 'I caught this for our anniversary.' He didn't, but I let him pretend." Course for duck confit. Note, "You can slow cook betrayal until it's tender, but it still tastes like what it is." Every plate returned clean. Laughter rippled through the dining room like a breeze through cornfields. One woman teared up over a sliver of blackberry pie. A man asked to take a photo with Carla, whispering, "My mama would have loved you." The air smelled of roasted rosemary, caramelizing onions, and something harder to name, vindication. At the bottom of every printed menu, in bold script, one line read, "Welcome to my kitchen." Delia stood by the sink, drying glasses with a checkered towel, watching the room with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen trend and truth come and go. "That one with the glasses," she murmured. "He's a food critic." I recognize the fake humility. Carla chuckled. "Let him write what he wants. I didn't cook this for stars. You cooked it to stir ghosts." Carla shrugged, and maybe wake a few was halfway through the final course. Cornbread pudding with bourbon cream, when a sharp knock sounded at the front door. 3 solid raps, intentional, disruptive. Dia raised an eyebrow. "You expecting someone?" "No," Carla said, already knowing. She stepped into the foyer, wiping her hands on her apron. Through the window pane, she saw him. Jason, hair slicked, shirt collar too tight, face flushed from a drink or a tantrum, or both. He held nothing, no peace offering, no wine, not even the decency of a phone call, just him, uninvited. She opened the door part way. His voice dropped. "I need to talk to you. I'm in service." "This is bigger than that, Mom. You're ruining everything." Carla's face didn't move. "You ruined it when you thought I'd just leave." Quietly, "Can I come in?" She looked behind her. Guests laughing, forks clinking, someone asking Dia where the greens came from. The room pulsed with warmth, memory, presence. It didn't need him. Carla turned back. "We're at capacity tonight." She closed the door. Not hard, not soft, just final. The letter came hand-delivered in a leather envelope, like it was meant for royalty or a hostage negotiation. Carla took it with flower-streaked hands, apron still tied, the scent of thyme and honey drifting off her skin. She didn't bother to read it at the door. She just said, "Tell Ruth I don't do math before lunch." The courier blinked. "Ma'am, exactly," Carla said, and closed the door behind her. Later, once the kitchen was clean and Delia had gone out to weed the front beds, Carla sat at the farm table, sliced the envelope open with her paring knife, and read $680,000. Immediate cash offer, contingent on Carla vacating the premises permanently and transferring the Eden Farm LLC brand. Laura hadn't signed the letter. Ruth had, in calligraphy, as if the ink might cover the insult. Beneath the figures was a note. "Let's put this all behind us with grace. We'll carry the name forward, modernize it. You've done your part." Carla didn't laugh out loud, but her smile curled like smoke. "Grace," she thought. "You think grace comes in 6 figures." She walked the letter to the stove, lit a burner, and fed the page to the flame like a thank you note. The fire ate it whole. Then she picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd scribbled on a napkin weeks ago. A literary agent Lena had introduced her to, young, hungry, Manhattan, fast, but Southern slow where it mattered. The woman picked up on the second ring. "Ms. Eden," she said, chipper. "I was hoping you'd call. I'm ready to talk about a book." "Oh, good. I was going to suggest, I already have the title," Carla said. Carla Eden, Fireproof Recipes and the Stories That Raised Them. There was a beat of silence on the other end. "I hope you're serious," the agent finally said. Carla wiped her hands on her apron and smiled toward the garden. "Baby, I already started writing." By the end of the week, she had 4,000 subscribers on her mailing list. Then 12,000, then 25,000. Some folks signed up just for the recipes, others for the drama, but most came for the voice in her newsletter. Short stories about burnt biscuits, saving a wedding with nothing but cornbread and charm, and the power of food that tastes like memory. She called the newsletter Second Servings. In one post, she wrote, "The kitchen doesn't forget who loved it. Neither do I." That one went viral. The local college culinary program asked her to guest lecture. A publisher requested a sample chapter. 3 women sent her handwritten letters asking to apprentice, and every Saturday, she opened her doors to 12 more guests, sometimes chefs, sometimes farmers, sometimes women who'd never been invited to anything this personal in their lives. The meals were no longer just food, they were witnessed. Sage showed up the next Sunday, backpack on, hair tied back, and sleeves rolled. She didn't ask permission. She just stepped inside, put her phone in a drawer, and said, "Where do you want me?" Carla didn't answer with words. She handed the girl a paring knife and pointed to the carrots. Sage worked without complaint, her hands learning the rhythm of peel, slice, dice. By the second hour, she was laughing with Delia and humming under her breath. By the third, she was setting the table without being told where anything went. "You're keeping her here." Jason's voice crackled through the phone that night. "She asked to come. She's 13. She's observant." Jason exhaled like he wanted to scream. "You're poisoning her against me." "No," Carla said softly. "You did that yourself. I just served the truth warm." That night, while reorganizing the kitchen drawers, Carla found something she hadn't seen in years. William's old chef's knife wrapped in canvas, the handle worn to the shape of his grip. She sat down at the table, unrolled it, and saw the inscription carved faintly along the metal spine: "To build, to break, to sharpen." She ran a thumb across the blade and smiled. The sun rose gold and soft over Eden Farm, stretching shadows across frosted fields and warming the kitchen windows from the outside in. Carla stood barefoot in her kitchen, the same kitchen they once tried to strip from her bones. She stirred the gravy slow, watching the flour bloom into brown silk, the scent of butter and drippings curling into the air like a hymn. Outside, the gravel drive crunched under the arrival of cars, not luxury SUVs or town cars with tinted windows. These were pickups, hatchbacks, the occasional van with the kids' drawing taped inside the back window. People who knew how to bring folding chairs. People who remembered Delia was the first to walk in, arms loaded with pies and sass. She kissed Carla on the cheek, sniffed the air, and said, "You sure you didn't bribe heaven for this weather?" Carla smirked. "No need to. Heaven knows me." The table was set for 20 this time. No monogrammed napkins, no floral centerpieces sculpted into swans, just mason jars with cut rosemary, wooden name cards hand-lettered by Sage, and mismatched plates, stacked 3 layers deep like a proper Southern meal. Sage buzzed around the kitchen like a bee in bloom, checking temperatures, basting, tasting with careful fingers. She moved with confidence now, flour on her shirt and wisdom in her eyes. "Where do you want the stuffing?" she asked. Carla handed her the clay casserole dish, the same one she'd used every Thanksgiving since 1981, center of the table. "It goes first." Sage looked down at it. "This is the one Dad didn't like, right?" Carla nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. "Said it was too heavy." Sage carried it like a crown. Guests filtered in, chefs from the supper club, former clients, Lena, with her camera and notebook, a neighbor who once called Carla a miracle worker for saving his mother's funeral reception from a blackout. Each guest brought something, not food, but stories, gratitude, a quiet recognition that this wasn't just a meal. This was a homecoming. Before they sat, Carla stood at the head of the table, one hand on the chair William used to pull out for her, the other holding a carved wooden spoon. "I won't make a speech," she said, her voice low but clear. "I've done enough talking this year. Gratitude isn't spoken, it's served." She placed the spoon down gently and sat. Delia raised her glass. "To the kitchen, to the kitchen," everyone echoed, and the feast began. The meal moved slow like honey. No rush, no interruptions. Laughter broke out over burnt rolls someone had brought as a joke. Second servings were taken without shame. Carla passed her greens with a wink, her biscuits with a nod, and when the stuffing dish reached the center, a hush fell. Delia spooned some onto her plate. "It smells like 1994 in here." Lena leaned in. "What's in it?" "Everything I was told to leave out," Carla said. Jason and Laura weren't mentioned, not once. Their seats were empty, not missed, not mourned. There was no space left in this house for the performative, the polished, the false. Only the real remained after dessert. As dusk slipped in and the sky turned lavender, Carla stepped outside for air. The door creaked like it always had. The porch light buzzed softly. Sage followed her out, pressing something into Carla's palm, a folded piece of notebook paper still warm from her hand. "Don't open it now," Sage said. "Just later." Then she hugged her. Long, tight, silent. Much later, after the dishes had been done and the final chair tucked in, Carla sat alone by the fireplace with her bourbon and the note. She unfolded it slowly, careful not to tear. "Gran, I'll never forget who made the kitchen warm again. Love, Sage." Carla read it twice. Then she placed it in William's old recipe journal between cornbread pudding and fire-roasted okra, where it belonged. The locksmith arrived just after dawn, his breath fogging in the morning chill as he stepped up to the porch. Carla met him with coffee and keys in hand. "Front door, back door, cellar, pantry, studio, side gate," she said, listing them off like names at roll call. He hesitated. "Replacing them all." She nodded once. "Clean slate." He opened his toolbox without another word. Carla stood back and watched as one by one the old locks were unscrewed, the bolts pulled free. Each twist of the screwdriver sounded like punctuation, a period at the end of a sentence she never asked permission to finish. Inside, her attorney, Amanda, sat at the kitchen table, documents spread out neatly, like place settings. "The irrevocable trust is ready," Amanda said. "Deed LLC, intellectual property, your recipe rights, the newsletter, everything that bears the name Eden Table or Eden Farm is now protected from contestation. No revisions, no reentries." Carla signed each page without flinching. Her pen moved slow and sure, like someone stirring batter by memory. "And Jason?" Amanda asked, glancing at the next line. Carla didn't look up. "Remove him fully." Amanda paused, then drew a line through his name on the beneficiary draft. "No drama, just ink." "He'll be angry," Amanda murmured. "He was angry when he thought he owned it. This won't change a thing." By afternoon, Carla had moved on to another task, one that had waited far too long. She cleared the dining table and laid out every catering journal she'd ever filled. 5 leather-bound volumes, yellowed post-its, stuck out like bookmarks to moments no one but she remembered. Some corners had water damage, others were smudged with oil or time. She lit a small fire in the fireplace and poured herself a bourbon. Then she opened a fresh notebook, linen-bound, hand-stitched spine, and began to write. Volume 1, Carla Eden's Recipes, Reckonings, and Real Ones. She started with cornbread, not just because it was her signature, but because it was always the first dish that told her whether a meal was headed somewhere real. Each recipe came with more than 10 ingredients. She added context, commentary, footnotes in the margins. "Don't skip the buttermilk, it's where the memory lives." This one saved 3 marriages and ended one, depending on how you serve it. She wrote, slow, deliberately, savoring every scribble like a spoonful of peach preserves. By nightfall, her knuckles ached and her back burned, but the book was finished. She wrapped it in parchment and twine, hand-labeled it, and then quietly walked it out to the porch where Sage was waiting with her backpack and a tin of shortbread. "I've got something for you," Carla said. Sage tilted her head. "It's not my birthday. It's not for now. It's for when the day comes. Someone tries to take something from you just because you make it look easy." She handed Sage the book. The girl held it like an heirloom. "What's on the last page?" she asked. Carla gave her a look. "Warm. Read it when you need it." But as Sage walked off down the path, Carla already knew the words by heart. Blood doesn't earn the kitchen. Fire does. That evening, Carla stood at the mailbox, bundled in a scarf and cardigan, watching the horizon bruise with purple. She opened a single envelope. No return address, just her name, hand-lettered with care. Inside, an embossed letterhead. Southern Harvest Network Food and Legacy Series. We'd like to feature your story. National Spotlight 1-hour segment. Filming starts in spring if you're willing. Carla read the letter once, then again. She didn't smile. She lit the porch light behind her, stepped inside, and picked up her apron. The kitchen wasn't finished yet. Carla hosted people from out of state for a holiday workshop. The first one arrived from Oregon. He wore flannel and boots meant for mountain trails, not red clay. He introduced himself as Aaron, a sous chef at a Pacific Northwest bistro. Said he'd flown 3 states and rerouted to layovers just to taste real Southern food that wasn't trying to be precious. The second came from Chicago, then Charleston, then Santa Fe. By the time the third day of Eden Table's holiday workshop rolled around, Carla stood in her kitchen, surrounded by accents she'd never heard before, and eyes wide with reverence. Number 1 asked for substitutions. No one Instagrammed during prep. These folks came to work, came to learn, came to remember something they hadn't even lived. And every single one of them called her Miss Eden, like she was a gospel. The workshops were an idea Lena floated back in spring. Offer a few spots during the holidays. Give them something no culinary school can teach. Heat, history, hands. Carla had laughed at the time. People aren't flying across the country to roll biscuit dough. But she was wrong. And now her kitchen pulsed with the quiet rhythm of devotion. Bowls clinking, knives chopping, a steady low murmur of questions, asked with respect, and answers given without ego. Sage moved through the room like she'd been born in that apron. Check your crusts, they should hold a fold without cracking. Watch your salt. Cornbread absorbs more than you think. If your greens aren't wilting yet, your flames are too shy. Carla just watched, proud, yes, but also something more solemn. Something like witnessing a house finally recognize its own heartbeat. On the final night, she stood in the driveway, hands in her coat pockets, watching the guests gather around the outdoor fire pit. They toasted marshmallows over hickory coals, not for s'mores, but because Carla insisted the smell of hickory was the real dessert. Inside, the kitchen was spotless, set, ready. Tomorrow, the cameras would arrive. Southern Home and Table magazine had sent word the week before, a full-page feature, professional photo shoot, and a short film for their online series. Carla's name would headline it. No Jason, no Bristow branding, just her, just Eden. "You nervous?" Delia asked, stepping beside her with 2 mugs of cider. "Never been the problem," Carla replied. "Cameras don't scare me. Why would they? You've always been a show." They clinked mugs. Later that night, the house empty again. Carla walked the kitchen slowly. She touched the countertop. Hand-sanded pine. William's hands all over it. The wood was smooth now, but still held the groove where he'd accidentally carved too deep while measuring flour. Carla had refused to patch it. She'd said, imperfections belong where meals are made. The stove still hissed softly. A pan from the last lesson cooled on the back burner. She wiped it down with a cloth, not because it needed cleaning, but because it deserved care. The house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt lit from within. Delia leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes shining. "You won," she said simply. Carla turned. "That was never the point." "Still," Delia added, "you did it with flavor." Carla smiled slowly and fully. That part was non-negotiable. They stood in silence then, the kind you only get after a fire has passed through and left something better behind. Carla was settling into bed, a book in her lap, and her glasses slipping down her nose when her phone buzzed across the nightstand. Unknown number. She let it ring twice, then swiped. The voicemail came in seconds later. She listened once, then again. Jason's voice, hesitant, low. "Mom, can we talk?" Jason waited by the hydrangeas, hands buried deep in his coat pockets, posture half hopeful, half hunched. The early morning frost clung to the edges of the stone garden path, brittle and unforgiving. Carla watched him from the porch for a long moment before stepping down, her boots quiet against the wood. She didn't say his name, just walked toward him with the same calm she used when slicing peaches, measured, precise, unhurried. "I figured you'd ignore the message," he said, offering a shrug that tried to pass for humility. "But I needed to say some things face to face." Carla stopped just short of arm's reach. "Talk," Jason exhaled. "I messed it up. All of it. The business. The house. You. I thought I could make something bigger out of what you built. I thought you'd be proud." "You thought wrong," she replied. Her voice wasn't cruel, just grounded, like dirt under fingernails. "I told myself it was legacy," he continued, eyes flicking toward the farmhouse. "But I think it was pride, maybe panic. I wanted to matter more than I did." The wind shifted. Carla smelled rosemary and wood smoke from the kitchen behind her. She didn't look back. "You didn't come here to apologize," she said. "You came hoping the door might open again." Jason stiffened. "That's not true." "It is," she said. "But it's also too late." His face twisted slightly. "You really won't even talk about it." "I am talking," she said calmly. "You just don't like the sound of no when it isn't dressed in politeness." Jason ran a hand over his mouth. "I was your son." "You are my son," she corrected. "But that never gave you the deed or the history. You confused access with ownership. They're not the same." He swallowed hard. "And that's it." Carla glanced at the frost-covered grass. The small garden bed Sage had planted weeks ago. Collard greens and winter herbs just beginning to push through. "That's it." She turned, started walking back toward the house. Jason stayed rooted at the bottom of the porch steps. She paused. "You had a seat at my table, Jason. You lost it trying to steal the kitchen." He didn't reply. She didn't wait. Inside, the warmth swallowed her. Music played low on the record player. Al Green's voice floated like steam through the air. Bread rose on the windowsill, plump and golden beneath a linen cloth. The kitchen glowed, not because of the light, but because of the life inside it. Sage stood at the butcher block, rolling biscuit dough, her hands dusted in flour, hair tucked behind one ear. She didn't ask what happened outside. She didn't need to. "You cut the butter, right?" Carla asked. Sage grinned. "Frozen and grated, like you taught me." Delia sat by the stove, sipping Cory coffee, legs crossed, watching the two of them, like a judge at a blessing. "I heard voices," she said. Carla nodded once. "He needed closure. And you." "I needed clarity." She walked over, reached for a mixing bowl, and dipped a finger into the batter. "Sweet, but not too sweet." "Needs more salt," she said, sliding the bowl toward Sage. "Got it," Sage replied, reaching for the shaker without missing a beat. The oven beeped ready. Outside, Jason's car engine turned over. Inside, Carla laid out a pan, gently placed each biscuit on parchment, like promises she meant to keep. Delia raised her cup in a toast. "To heat, to hands, to hell with the rest." Carla clinked her coffee mug against it. "Amen." The kitchen was alive with sound, whisks tapping bowls, laughter bouncing off the walls, a timer ticking like a heartbeat. Carla looked around. No investors, no critics, no baristas with moneyed voices trying to rename what already had a name, just bread rising, just women working, just fire earned, tended, passed down. She breathed it all in. This time I didn't come for leftovers. I am the feast.